Hi, I'm Billy Keels, the host of the Going Long podcast. Every week, I'm going to be here interviewing the absolute best in the business as it relates to real asset investing, as well as real Main Street investors. We're going to be having conversations where you can listen in, and that's going to help you to continue on your path to education so that you feel much more comfortable as well as confident in investing long distance. So make sure that you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you're liking it as well, because that way you can get every single episode as soon as it comes out. And by the way, don't forget to leave today's episode a 5-star review. Let's go ahead and listen to today's conversation. Welcome to the Going Long podcast, where we're here to continue to help educate you so that you can feel more confident investing beyond your backyard. If you are interested or you're looking to understand more about having a side hustle and how that can be actually fuel for your growth personally and professionally, then this is a conversation that you are definitely going to want to stick around for until the very end. Because today's guest has not only partnered on over 40 million in real estate acquisitions, he's also the founder of NT Capital LLC. He continues to be mentored and mentor and coach others. And most importantly, really taking action after the mentoring and coaching. He is an experienced professional in the area of real estate investing, really likes to focus on multifamily and self-storage. He's done it across multiple states. He's also a guy from Pennsylvania who's currently living in Virginia, which is close to our hearts. And on today's show, I'd really like to welcome Mr. Taylor Loht. Taylor, thanks for joining and welcome.
What's going on, Billy? It's a pleasure to talk with you again. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, man, this is a lot of fun. So I always like to start out. I mean, everybody knows this is the Going Long podcast. This is where we make sure that distances aren't a barrier. Quite the opposite. That's our advantage. And so today I'm here in Barcelona, Spain. Can you help us understand and let the rest of the audience understand, where are you today?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So we are talking during the coronavirus pandemic, unfortunately, where everyone across the world is pretty much staying home. And right now I am home in Richmond, Virginia. For those of your listeners who live in Europe or other parts of the world, it's about 2 hours without traffic driving south of Washington, D.C., the capital of the United States.
All right. Fantastic. I love that. Without traffic, because that's key.
Without traffic. Yeah.
Cool. Taylor, so let's jump right in, man. There are so many different things. I'm sure that you've made a number of different decisions in your life. There were points that you had to make decisions to get you to this point in your life as a real estate entrepreneur, as a real estate investor. Can you help the Going Long audience really understand what your journey has been to get you to this point?
Sure. That's interesting. It's tough to boil that all down, but I'll do my best. So years ago, I was in my mid-20s and not really pleased with the direction my career was going in. So I was thinking, I need to do something. I need to change something. And my initial route was, I'm going to get an MBA. I'm going to go to business school. And I'm not just going to get an MBA in the US. I'm going to move to Europe, do an MBA there, and figure it out moving forward. But at the same time, I knew that, or I had this feeling that maybe that wasn't right. And I took the GMAT, got a good score. I studied like crazy. I was traveling around the US. I get on planes every week, flying from Pennsylvania, where I lived at the time, to California, fly home, fly back to California the next week, all over the place. A lot of time on planes to study. And took the test, got a good score. But I started to think about what is my end game with going to business school? What am I going to do afterward? I looked at the careers. So you can, banking, consulting are pretty much the top careers that people go into getting out of business school. And consulting was just out. I knew I couldn't travel like that anymore. I did not. I love traveling for fun, but being on a plane every week is just not right for me. And being in banking, there was something about it that I love looking good. I love putting on nice clothes. I don't want to put on a suit every day. So I made the decision to continue down my sales career. I was my background's in chemical engineering, and I got into sales and get into real estate. I didn't know what that was going to be, the real estate investing, but I committed to figuring it out. And it took a few years to start figuring it out. And I initially explored the things that most people, at least in the United States, are familiar with. If you are a typical person in the US, you've probably seen a TV show about flipping houses. So I learned about flipping houses, and there was just still that feeling of this isn't right for me. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with it. It's just not right for me. I also started learning about single family and small multifamily investing. And there was something about it that the scale of it being so small that it also didn't feel right. Kept looking, I kept learning, kept listening to podcasts, kept talking to people, going to networking events, and really just spending time learning. And I learned about multifamily syndication, and a few other aspects of commercial real estate. And it just clicked. I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. But it's not as easy as just saying, that's what I want to do. You have to learn about the business. You have to build a brand. You have to build a network of not just, you have to go get investors, meet investors, but you also need a network of partners that can help you close deals and help you get through deals. You need a network of brokers to bring you and your partners deals. And it's a complex problem, but it is absolutely solvable. So I committed to getting into that, decided not to go to business school, even though I thought it would be fun to maybe go to SDA Bocconi or any IE business school. Like, I think I could have gotten into a few of those. And sometimes I in a way, I still wonder, because I'm certainly envious of you living there in Barcelona. I think I would love that. Yeah. So over the years, I started, my first investment in real estate was in a real estate syndication as a passive investor. And it was 2 properties in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a pretty major market that I think many people are probably familiar with. I met a syndicator at a syndication event and got on his list. I mean, I met a lot of syndicators and got on a lot of lists, but this one in particular got on his list. Saw this particular deal come across, and I thought, okay, I think that'll be an interesting investment. I put some money together, had some time, invested, and we since exited the property. I learned some things along the way, even as a passive investor. We made a return. We bought 454 units across 2 apartment complex properties. And I was one of many investors. I think there were probably 70 or 80 of us passive investors in that deal from all over the country, probably all over the world. I don't have a lot of visibility on who all invested. But it was a good entrance, a good way to get introduced to what it's like to passively invest in real estate, the types of problems that the general partnership had to work through to manage the property and manage the business plan. And really just what it's like. I mean, it has informed my actions now as a general partner with investors in my deals, and the way that things that I like that general partner did, and things that I don't like that he did. I think the things I don't like are more important. But since then, like you said, we bought a property in Amarillo, Texas. I'm a general partner on that. Since then, we've also acquired a property in Columbia, South Carolina. And for those out there who aren't familiar with the geography, that's okay. These properties are very far apart. I mean, it's a solid plane ride to get there. The United States is a big place, and that's fine. I've also passively invested in self-storage in Corsicana, Texas. I love that self-storage, and my passive investments, I've never seen those properties. I don't really have any plans to see any property I passively invest in. I will continue to passively invest in real estate. But it's one of the big things is, for somebody out there who's kind of curious about getting into real estate, curious about getting into more, say, alternative investments other than in the stock market and things like that, which is a casino and a roller coaster. I have investments in the stock market and I hate it, but I'm still in there. You can invest in real estate without ever seeing it. And there are really solid processes that you can follow to find good investments and good people to invest with. And probably the biggest lesson is that the people part, the team, is really number one when it comes to passively investing in real estate. So that was a long answer to your question, but that has led me to where I am now.
So, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, we have everything to be able to unpack, right? There's a lot of different places we can take this conversation, right? Because you're talking about everything from after university, looking to go to Europe, right? To potentially go and do your MBA. You spent thousands of hours, and maybe I'm going to assume there were thousands of hours if you were flying out to California all the time. So you had plenty of time to actually go out, study, and then you realized there was something inside of you that said, well, you know what? I want to find out more about real estate. And then from there, there's a pattern, right? You started to take action. You looked at the single family, that didn't resonate with you. You looked at the small multifamily, that didn't resonate with you. You looked at things that did start resonating with you, which were like the larger multifamily. Then you started talking about something that you talked about, syndication, which we're going to talk about a little bit more. But even you talked about you talked about the business and also your brand and your network. And I know that I have mentors that talk about, really two focus areas would build your brand and build your network. So I'm sure we'll come back to that as well. You've done passive investing, and then you've evolved into a general partner. So these are some terms that we're going to talk about. And you've even had over 2 different properties, 454 units. But let's go back to one of the things that you talked about, Taylor, because what was the driver for you to get into real estate, right? Because you made that choice right on, but at the very beginning, what was behind that?
It's a complex answer, to be perfectly honest with you. And I can't fully answer that question without telling you about going even further back. So I graduated from university in 2011, and I went into university in 2007. And I'm very fortunate that my parents supported me through college, and my sister. So super fortunate there. But my experience in that was, we hit the Great Recession, and I watched my parents struggle. And we always ate. We didn't have money problems, but struggle to keep their jobs. I mean, the economy was falling apart, and in observing that, and I mean, absolutely, I benefited from it. I'm eternally grateful to them. But in observing them going through that, I knew that I didn't want to be in that position. Whether it's when I'm in my 40s and 50s, if I have kids that, to put through college. I mean, 30 now, I don't have any children. So, we'll have to kick the can a little bit on that. But getting into that position where I have large, substantial liabilities I want to cover, or things that I want to do, and kind of financially struggling through it due to factors that are beyond my control. And we can't control everything in the world. We shouldn't even bother trying to, in a certain sense. But when it comes to making money and diversifying our income, even as busy professionals who work well more than 40 hours a week, we have a lot of options. So, that really, watching them go through that it sparked me to know that I needed more financial security, more streams of income, and just more options and more, I hate to say the word wealth, even though it's the name of my show, but more streams of income, and real estate, it produces that. It's not the only route, but people are always going to need a place to live. I know people who have people I consider friends who have Amazon FBA businesses that make a huge amount of money, but Amazon can flip a switch tomorrow and shut that completely down. We are in unprecedented times right now in terms of unemployment in the United States, but people always need a place to live, and they're always going to work hard to cover that expense. So real estate, to me, made a lot of sense that it's just not going to be innovated away.
And I appreciate your vulnerability, sharing that story with us. And a
It's
lot of
true.
time, yeah, and a lot of times it is really about we're either running towards some type of pleasure or we're running away from pain, and whether that's on the surface or in the subconscious. And the fact that that is a motivator for you pushed you at least towards the real estate as a potential area. And since then, you've done a lot of things, Taylor. And you talked about being able to network, and I want to understand kind of what is that networking aspect, how important has that been to you, and also kind of what are some of the, well, yeah, how important has that been to you?
Billy, it's been everything. I mean, without without a sense of exaggeration, networking has produced every result I've had in real estate. Period. You know, without it, there wouldn't be anything. And I mean, there are obviously efforts beyond networking, but you know, I meet my partners through networking. I meet my investors through networking. And it's not just networking at real estate events. I mean, some
Give
of
us
them are
some.
friends
I
and
was going to say, give
sure.
us some examples. Sorry, what are some of the things that you're doing? Because I know you're crushing it in that area.
Yeah, well, you know, it takes work and commitment, right? But you know, I consider my podcast, Passive Wealth Strategies for Busy Professionals, a networking tool. It gets people out there. I get a great opportunity to be in the seat you're in right now and talk to some fantastic investors and ask them whatever question I want. So that's fantastic. I host a monthly meetup here in Richmond, Virginia, at least when we're not under quarantine. We've got a bit over 500 members now and in the group, and we'll get anywhere between 25 and 50 people coming to, you know, coming to a bar, basically into the back room, and we get dinner and drinks and we talk about real estate, bring a presenter. And, you know, in the position that I'm in as someone who, you know, raises money and buys real estate, being in the front of the room and organizing the group has a huge advantage from a branding standpoint. But also, you know, people want to meet you and they want to get to know you more when you're more out there. So, you know, you meet investors that way. I also go to, you know, national type events. I mean, I it's been a little while, but I went to a few real estate guys events. There are events in Philadelphia I've been to. There are a lot in Texas. I don't know why it's so popular in Texas, but the Dallas area has a lot of events. But you know, you have to plan those and buy a ticket, buy a plane ticket, buy a hotel, or I use Airbnb. But go to those things, and then the key turns into follow up and having systems to keep in touch with people. Because if you go to one of those events, you know, if you commit to really connecting with a lot of people, you might still make like 50 new friends. And if you don't log that and really try to keep in touch with those people, you're going to lose the connection, and you have to really keep that. So.
Okay. Well, you make a great point just in terms of the power of networking. So you talk about not only your own podcast, but the fact that you've also taken the initiative to start a meetup where you have 500 people, 25 to 50 that are coming to see you on a regular basis when we're outside of COVID-19 kind of
Yeah.
situation, of course. And as you mentioned, being in the front of the room, that has an opportunity for you to create new dynamics. And, you know, myself, I talk about this all the time. And in living in Europe, I make the commitment to go to the US. If you think about last year, I went to two different events that were the real estate guys. I went to the New Orleans Investment Conference, because when the relationships are important enough, you have to put your money where your mouth is, and you have to go out and actually meet people. And so that is something, as you mentioned before, people want to get a chance to meet you. And I think you've done an amazing job at that. And having done that, Taylor, I mean, I think this is an aspect because a lot of our audience also balances doing, they have enough challenges just with doing their day job, much less
Yeah.
doing some of this stuff. So one of the things we talked about before, you're still in a full-time role and you're a limited partner and you're a general partner. How in the world are you finding the time or the direction to be able to get all this done?
Well, you know, it's not easy, and I would never suggest that it's easy, but it's also not, I don't want to say it's not as hard as it seems, but really, I think when we kind of get caught up in life or just general distractions, we tend to forget how much time we have in the day. And, at least here in the United States, it's very common for people to sit down in the evenings and, watch reality TV or just do things that have a very low lifetime value. There's this concept in the Tony Robbins circles and I'm not a huge Tony Robbins guy, but this concept of, lifetime value. And some of those activities, sitting down and watching a reality TV show, have low lifetime value. I'm not saying there's no value in entertainment. There absolutely is. But, optimizing our time and really taking those actions and having a plan has the most value. I mean, if you sit down for, start with a half an hour a day in the evenings of browsing on Bigger Pockets or talking to somebody on Facebook or setting up a Zoom call like we're doing right now to talk to another investor, and just do a half an hour a day for a week. And then the next week, turn it to 45 minutes. And then it turn it to an hour. And by the time you get to that hour, if you keep adding 15 minutes, you're going to be at 2 hours and you're going to say, how did I not think I had a half an hour? So, everybody will hit a different point, but it's really a matter of committing to taking actions and pushing yourself. And, we try to, we have a tendency in a lot of areas of life to think that these things are all or nothing. And you can learn from, I'm not a runner, but there's this concept in the running world of the Couch to 5K program. It's a program to get you from sitting on the couch to being able to run a 5K. And what do you think the first day says? Does it say, go run a 5K? No. It says, go walk to the end of the block and walk back, and then sit back on the couch. Don't do anything. And then over time, you gradually build the resistance and you work up to running 5 kilometers. And, by moving beyond that is, another program, but you keep pushing it. And it's the same principle in real estate. And I mean, as you go, you're learning things as to how to optimize. I mean, hosting my podcast, we may or may not touch on this, but you and I originally met because I had a podcast before, the 7-Figure Sales podcast. And I learned things by hosting that, not just, learning the lessons of sales, but also the processes of running a podcast and things along those lines. So if you're really learning the meta game of executing on your strategy, you're going to keep getting better and better and better at it. But it's just a matter of putting one foot in front of the other. No matter what you're doing, just take daily action.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. So being able to really understand what are the priorities, then being able to make sure that you are working your highest level activities in the areas that are aligned with your priorities. I guess if I could sum it up, you also take in, and I love that example that you talked about with the 7-figure sales, because although that was a decision that you made to move into another area, you learned a lot of the base processes that have helped to put you in a really, really strong position with passive wealth strategies professionals today. So there's also one there. So there's a quote that I know that, well, I attribute this to you, and I think it also ties back in, and it is add by subtraction. It's one of the most wonderful things I've ever heard you talk about. Can you give, because I think it ties in really well what you were talking about before, just so people understand conceptually, when you say add by subtraction, what does that mean?
Well, first of all, I'll guarantee you that I was not the originator of that. I'm, in life, one of my, I don't know if I want to say points of pride, but one of my personal initiatives is to learn from others relentlessly and just not in a stealing sense, but copy anything I possibly can that I think is a good idea. Mm-hmm. So I can almost guarantee that I did not make up that idea or originate that. But, I think eliminating things and taking things out of your life deliberately is a very important practice, no matter what it is. I mean, it's like clearing out, your hard drive in your brain, whether it's, deleting old files or things like that. But, I think cutting out, say, negative people getting them out of your life is super important, whether it's somebody that says, what are you bothering to invest in real estate for? You're just going to lose money, something like that. But people that aren't adding value to your life, then, I think it might be time to part ways with them. Would be probably the biggest recommendation of things. Something to implement is, think about the people that are in your life and those that aren't adding value, and subtract those. Other things to subtract, going back to kind of what I said before, is subtracting some of that downtime and getting rid of, I don't have cable, and I get letters from the main cable provider here in the US is Comcast. They're the worst company on the planet, but I get letters from them on almost a weekly basis saying, hey, first 3 months free of cable. No, I have no interest. You could charge me more to just have internet. Thank you very much. Because I know that box is just going to be a distraction. So that's subtracted and it's never getting added back in. But, we have a distracting world. So you have to be constantly on the lookout for things that you need to remove, because it just tends to creep in. So sometimes you need to get rid of that. One of the things that I'll tell you, probably the biggest struggle that I've had, at least outside of the quarantine, and this is in no way to make light of the quarantine or anything like that, or the the COVID pandemic. But as a real estate investor, real estate entrepreneur, you can optimize up to a certain point, and then continuing to add hours. It's subtracting. Eventually, you're going to be subtracting things that you like to do and you feel add value. And one of my biggest things is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's my favorite activity in the world. And unfortunately, right now, I can't do it. But in normal life, that's all I want to do in my free time. I want to, work my 40 hours, and then 5 p.m. hits and I'm in the car on the way to the gym. And one of my business coaches, Trevor McGregor, we talked about this, and he helped me realize that I even have to subtract that sometimes. Even though it's a healthy activity, it's not adding the optimal lifetime value if that's the only thing I'm doing. So that's something that I've had to strategically subtract, because it's otherwise a healthy activity. It makes me feel great. It puts my mindset in the right space. One of my favorite travel experiences was a couple years ago. I went on vacation in Italy. I've been in Italy a few times, but a friend of mine who is Saudi, was living in Florence. His company had sent him to school in Florence for 6 months. And a few of us went over there and stayed with him. And I took my jiu-jitsu stuff and I went to a gym in Florence just to, say I've done jiu-jitsu in Italy. So, it's my favorite thing to do. But again, it's something that I've had to strategically subtract so that I can add value to my real estate investments.
Okay. I appreciate, once again, you sharing that story with us. And, we're getting to the point where I like to wrap things up. At least get us started kind of down the home stretch here. And I really like to ask, I guess, everybody the same final 3 questions. They are questions that you've already started to allude to some of them already, but hey, listen, we're going to ask you. If you're ready for me to ask the final 3 questions, just let me know and we'll get started.
Go for it.
All right, cool. So with the Going Long podcast, we really love being here based in Europe. And so we always want to know, or I always want to know, what is your favorite European city, either that you visited or is still on your bucket list to visit?
Oh boy. Well, I would hate to put a city that I haven't been to, and I have many, many cities I haven't been to and I want to go to. So I'll limit it to the cities that I've been to. And even then it's so hard to pick. I'll tell you. Just one. Just one. So I'm going to say Munich, because okay. I love Munich. It's a party. But that's not to detract from Rome or Florence or Milan or
everybody has favorites. You that's your favorite. That's fine. It's a great time, especially in October or in the summertime. It's great. Okay, so Munich. There's a vote for Munich. Second question. So we've talked about a number of different issue or mistakes or learning opportunities, however you want to say them, what is the one lesson from all the number of different mistakes that you've made that you would want to share with the going long audience? And yeah, what would that lesson be from a mistake?
This is something that I look at this question in a way of, if I could rewind time to any given point and give myself one lesson, because I think that is the most valuable way to look at this question, it would be commit. If you want to invest in real estate or in any entrepreneurial venture, whatever it is, you have to commit. And I don't think at least the beginning, I don't think I really understood what that meant. And there are a few reasons why, but some of the best advantages that I've gotten in learning how to commit is getting examples of people who have, like you, like my friend Whitney Sewell, who lives a few hours away from me in Virginia, and just other people who are really good at commitment, seeing those examples and just learning the value of the time value of being committed to taking actions every day. Awesome. That is really what it all is.
Okay. Awesome. So having to learn that, put commitment as a focus, a lesson that you would pass on to others. Perfect. Commit. Yes. Awesome. And then the last question, and this actually has to do with reading. So we always want to know, there's so many different books that are out there that have helped make an impact. And I'm sure you've read a number, whatever that number of books is. But if you had to recommend one book or a book that's had a big impact on you as a real estate entrepreneur, what is that book that you would want to share with us?
Well, Billy, I am prepared. And if you'll, I don't know whether you're going to share the video, but for the audio folks, I hope you'll bear with me momentarily while I lean off camera and grab something, because I was ready for this question, even though I didn't know it was coming.
Go right ahead.
I brought props, and this is just a selection of my book list right now, but there are some of my favorites in here and some that I haven't read yet, but have been very highly recommended. Right now, what I'm reading is Building a Story Brand. It was highly recommended by one, I guess, on my podcast.
Excellent.
But to directly answer your question, probably one of the biggest books, I'm not going to say this, but Rich Dad Poor Dad. That's not my answer, though.
Okay.
You're going to get that answer elsewhere. One of the biggest, best books that I've read is Crucial Conversations. This was recommended to me by my mentor, Joe Fairless, and it's not about real estate. It's called Crucial Conversations. It's about how to handle tough conversations in all aspects of your life. And it doesn't make you a bulletproof conversationalist. It doesn't make you the greatest negotiator on the planet. There are other books for that. It just helps you deal with difficult, tough conversations. And it's not a thick book. It's not a hard read. And it's fantastic. It's had probably the biggest impact on my life, not just my life and my business, but my life in general.
Fantastic. So Crucial Conversations, it's definitely a must read. And so that takes it home. I guess we've had a chance to learn a lot about you, Taylor. Really appreciate you today spending the time to help us understand everything from getting ready to potentially come to Europe, having had your life impacted, and really understand, help to drive a fire with real estate. You found the area that you wanted to play at the same time that you are still working in your day job. You've been able to evolve very, very well from limited partnership into general partnership, continuing to grow your brand, your network, adding value to others through your podcast, through your meetups, and have shared some information with us now. And after all this, Taylor, a lot of people are just like me. They're trying to figure out, like, how can I get in touch with this guy? I need to know more about this guy. Quickly. So help everybody understand, what is the best way to reach out and get in touch with you, Taylor?
Quickly. Oh boy. So if you're in the United States, I'm not sure if this is going to work for folks in Europe. You're welcome to try. I don't know if it's going to work, but you can text the words real estate, no caps, 2 words, real estate, to 31996. It's 31996 to get the top 5 things holding you back in real estate. This is from a success coach that I've had on my show, huge lessons, and that'll also get you in touch with me. If you're in the US or not in the US and you want to learn the top 5 passive wealth assets, that's available at passivewealthstrategy.com. The top 5 passive wealth assets for busy professionals, again, informed by the over 100, now 130 episodes of my show. And that'll get you in touch with me. If you want to reach out directly, my email is Taylor, Taylor, at passivewealthstrategy.com.
Awesome. So Taylor, listen, man, this has been fantastic. We're going to include all of those ways to contact you in the show notes. We're going to include them here in the videos as well. So just really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here, for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and your all the goodness. So thanks so much for all of the Going Long listeners. I want to go out and also help to share the goodness with your community as well. And this is Billy Keels with the Going Long podcast, and really want to welcome you back for the very next episode. So thanks once again, everybody. Wow, don't you love hearing from top-notch experts in the field? You know, when I was getting started, I really wish that I would have had access to such experts. And even more, I wish they would have given me like a really simple list of things to follow so that I could have gotten to my goals much faster and been much happier even sooner. So that's why I've created for you the 7 things that you should avoid in order to be successful in long-distance investing. And you can pick that up really easily by going to billykeels.com/7 things to avoid. And also, if you liked today's episode, don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I'm looking forward to seeing you on our very next episode, so go out and make it a great day.